Great. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yishel and I'm the founder of Dot. I have almost a decade worth of experience in business development and working with healthcare organizations, specifically children with mental disabilities. I've seen children being misdiagnosed, suffering side effects of strong medication. I've seen parents struggling to navigate through the healthcare system to find the right treatment. There is a global problem of different mental disorders being grouped together and diagnosed with a one fit for all approach. It just doesn't work. To address this issue, my team and I at DOT have developed a wearable headset that reads brainwave activity and provides diagnosis and therapy for different mental health conditions. We are on a mission to help 1 billion children and young adults facing mental health issues, starting with the condition of attention deficiency hyperactive disorder. So while serving families with ADHD, I met Jacqueline. Jacqueline realized there's something wrong with her son at a very young age. She was embarrassed to take him into public. She started getting complaints from teachers, and that's when she decided to get him tested for ADHD. Navigating through the healthcare system took another 2 years before receiving a confirmed diagnosis. It took several more years to find the right treatment. Michael, on the other hand, started failing at school. He felt lonely and withdrawn. Medication didn't work for him. He developed other psychiatric problems. So let's take a look at some stats. Depression affects 5% of the population worldwide, autism 8, ADHD affects 15% of the population worldwide, and mental health conditions have only increased by 56% over the past decade. Similar to Michael, there are 1 billion individuals worldwide who are affected with this condition, and this creates an economic burden of $5 trillion. Here in Canada, there's roughly 1.2 million children diagnosed with ADHD. Our goal in the first year is to reach 15,000 children, translating to a service obtainable market of 18 million. The current status quo of diagnosing ADHD is based on these questionnaires. It's subjective. Treatment is through trial and error of medication, some of which have horrific side effects. Anxiety, psychosis, seizures. Keep in mind, these medications are being given to children under the age of 10, whose brains are still growing and maturing, and we're messing with that. The current system is error prone. Misdiagnosis is on the rise, medication have detrimental side effects, and the overall system is inefficient. As you saw in the case of Michael, 5 precious years of his life were wasted before receiving any diagnosis or treatment. That's where we, DOT, come in. Our solution is accurate, affordable, and efficient. Our product combines both hardware and software. Using the headset, we read the individual's brainwave activity and run clinically established algorithms to form a diagnosis. This means there are blueprints in brain patterns for mental disorders. The headset only needs to be worn for under 5 minutes to get a diagnosis. Our platform also offers therapy through interactive games that improve cognitive ability in an engaging manner. Prior to launching, we had conducted preclinical research at various prestigious institutions such as McGill and the Texas Medical Center. We have tested our technology on over 1,000 individuals to develop our IP. We haven't just met clinical benchmarks for diagnostic criteria, we exceed them. With a 97% specificity and over 90% in both accuracy and sensitivity, we're not just on par with existing standards, we're creating new standards. As of our alpha launch overseas in 2019, we conducted 300 child development assessment and consistently maintained our 92% diagnostic accuracy. More than numbers, we observed that up to 87% improvement in cognitive skills of children. Our launch overseas was a strategic maneuver. We accessed clean, comprehensive patient data with minimal funds. Such data would cost millions of dollars in North America. This access has not only enriched our algorithms, but also positioned us at a vantage point in the competitive landscape. Our contributions extend globally as we align with 6 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This alignment underscores our dedication to fostering global wellness, equality, innovation, and strong institutions. We are providing immense value to both the healthcare system as well as the patient. Our product helps increase patient throughput at facilities, which means increased revenue for practitioners in the US, reduce wait times to see specialists. And on the patient side, we help increase compliance of patients as well as increase drug effectiveness. DOT has been built by a team of neuroscientists and medical researchers. I'm an electrical engineer from McGill University, and my partner, Dr. Rashida Chaudhary, is a PhD neuroscientist. We have doctors and neuroscientists on board both locally and in the international market. We have strategically aligned ourselves with advisors with expertise in regulatory, healthcare network, as well as business development. Our most recent addition are Dr. Albert Chu, who is a pediatric neurosurgeon at CHIO and also our clinical champion at the hospital facilitating our validation study, and Dr. Brian Whitestone, who's a surgeon and expert in commercialization strategies for medtech companies. Coming to our commercialization journey, we focus on two critical stages, the limited market release and then the full commercial launch. Over the past several years, we've been laying groundwork with our pre-market activities, engaging key opinion leaders, undergoing preclinical studies, as well as launching overseas to collect data. We're now in the limited market release phase in Canada. For this, we have identified pilot sites, such as the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. Our focus is on gaining real-world insight as well as showing the value to these healthcare systems. Looking ahead of our limited market release stage, we will evolve into a full commercial launch. And it's here that our product will reach a broader audience backed by extensive marketing strategies. We've completed quite a few milestones on our roadmap. Phase 1 and Phase 2 encompass the foundational work where we focused on initial testing, conducting customer service to assess the viability of our product, and knowing that there's an unmet need and demand for a product like ours, we began bootstrapping to create a hardware prototype and began our preclinical studies. In Phase 3 of collecting real-world data, we launched our product overseas, which resulted in a fully functional diagnostic platform called Neuron. We are now in Phase 3.2 of our limited market release with select hospitals in Canada, as I mentioned earlier, starting with CHIO. We are developing our IP strategy, which consists of both publishing and patenting our technology. We will be filing for design patents for the hardware alongside patenting our diagnostic software. And I do want to mention that at the end of Phase 3 of our limited market release, we will be revenue generating. As we move forward, we're looking towards Phase 4. This phase will focus on obtaining regulatory approval, safety certifications. In Phase 5, strategy is going to be king to gain market access. We're speaking with payers for reimbursement, honing our brand, and we will also be revving up for a full-scale commercial launch by the end of 2026. We're looking for strategic advisors to help us on this journey. Once we have hospitals and clinics on board using our platform for diagnostic conditions of ADHD, in Phase 6, we will release an at-home patient version of our product for therapy. This is when we will transition from 3D printing the headset and assembling them in-house to injection molding for mass production to cater to the increased demand. I do want to point out that up until this point, this venture has primarily been funded through non-dilutive means such as bootstrapping, grants, awards, and personal investments. While I am proud of the progress we've made so far, I also recognize that we need additional investment to realize our future plans and execute without delays. We've opted for software as a service subscription model. This subscription is priced at $500 monthly. Our pricing strategy involves bundling our hardware with the subscription. The pricing will be tested during our limited market release phase. The price points for a full commercial launch and other market segments have yet to be determined. It's worth noting that a conventional EEG system comes with a much higher price tag of around $50,000. Our projections indicate that by the end of 2027, we will reach sales revenue of $4.5 million that significantly outweigh our costs, suggesting a profitable and sustainable business model. We have taken into account the time it takes to complete clinical validation, get regulatory approval, as well as certify our hardware device to serve healthcare. Over the past several years, we won several awards and grants amounting to close to $500,000 through various institutions listed here. Unfortunately, the most affordable and common solutions out there are the least effective. The status quo of diagnosing mental health conditions through multiple questionnaires is at the bottom of the list. We're tapping into an unserved market of providing an effective, low-cost solution. Today, we're seeking a pre-seed investment of $500,000. A portion of the funds would be used to patent our technology, which is critical for securing our competitive advantage prior to any publications. Another significant portion would be invested towards R&D, which includes conducting the clinical trials with CHIO, as well as to establish data security, which is crucial in this industry. We'll be hiring a regulatory consultant who will assist with developing our regulatory strategy, obtaining approvals, and aligning it with our clinical data collection processes. Zooming out, I do want to mention that our platform Neuron's capability for ADHD is just the tip of the iceberg. Neuron's ability applies to all mental health conditions, and we will become the pioneers of data-driven approach into mental health. My name is Yishel Khan, and I'm the founder of Dot Mind and Law. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Yishel. All right, Leah, would you want to kick us off with some feedback or questions for Yishel?
Sure, I probably have a bit of both. So excellent, concise presentation. I really like stuff that stuck out to me. I love the way you opened with your experience and the heartfelt story. I thought your slides were really compelling at the beginning, showing the impact to, was his name Michael, the kid and the family. I thought that's the kind of storytelling I like, because it really draws me in to say, okay, I understand the problem. I thought your stats were good. There was just a question I had when the stats were flying by as to whether they were for the whole population or related to children, because you zoomed me into kids, and then I think the stats took me back out again.
This one's the whole population, these two slides, and then I get to, this is just kids in Canada.
At the target, yeah. So I think it was just that you already had me to children. And so I wondered if the stats could apply to, or maybe you could just mention, look, the entire population has this massive problem. We need to get to the kids to sort of stem that issue of what happens to the global population, of kids alone, this many people have ADHD, blah, blah, blah. So it's sort of, I was confused because we went back out to a macro view, and you already had me at kids. Okay. Just a really small suggestion that, and I can put this in details. When you had the lessening the burden, I thought that was a really impactful slide. And you had sort of for the families, and then subtitle for the physicians, for the families, for the, you kind of have you have two personas that you're trying to make happy. You might just want to put that on two sides of the slide, right? Here's the kid and family, and here's the physician. And there's benefits for both. And it might be easier to just kind of say, hey, look, I'm satisfying two personas with problems here. And because I got what you were trying to say, it was just, maybe there's an easier way to lay that out to show both personas. One thing so one of the questions oh, by the way, I loved your reasonable financial projections, your roadmap, all that stuff was clear. I did have a question just on, the offering itself. Like, you kind of buzzed by one of the slides that had the 3 benefits on it. I didn't have a chance to read it at all. But I was kind of wondering, is this, like, out of the gate, is Neuron something that is only available at the hospital, or do families take one home? What's the buying process? Do they just need a couple for the hospital, or do families get a copy to take home? I wasn't sure about that.
Okay, so just expanding on, so we do have a clinician version where they get the headset, and then they'll have, for our limited market release, we're allowing them to test it on multiple patients. But when we go towards our full commercial launch, we will have tiered patient profiles, so they can add additional patients for a cost, but they can use one headset on multiple patients essentially. And then the goal is to transition by 2027 to have these doctors and physicians who are using our product recommend our product to the individuals to take home for therapy, and then we'll have a separate version by 2027 for patients to take home and basically conduct neurofeedback therapy on themselves.
Right. So that's sort of, I guess I was gleaning that from what you said, and then I just wondered if they only need a couple of these headsets and it's subscription based and stuff, how much money can you make from each physician or hospital? Like, it seems like there's not very many of these that they'll need. If there's a per patient or per test cost in there, something to up your revenue opportunity, I wasn't sure. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Great, thanks, Leah. I'll just go down my screen in your order. Farhana, you want to jump in here?
I actually have a question before we kick in. So I think it was very smart of you to launch overseas. Are you finding that the algorithms or your testing that you did overseas is as effective? The reason I ask is my assumption is you probably launched in a low middle income country and now you're bringing those algorithms to a high income country. Low middle income countries, when it comes to mental health, because of the different environments that they live in. And what I mean by that is the family unit is very close, religion is usually quite prominent, etc. From a mental health perspective, that really helps, especially in children. And so have you had to make any changes with respect to either the diagnostic or the gamification based on your majority of your testing has been in a low middle income country setting?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thank you for that. So in terms of we're right now in Canada, we're only focusing on the diagnostics. So the therapy gamification aspect is something we will bring in as we are nearing the end of our limited market release. But right now, as our first value proposition to hospitals, we're focusing on diagnostic. In terms of the differences that we've seen, you're definitely correct in stating that we had access to cleaner data when we were testing, and we tested in Pakistan, so we were testing with clinics who had children coming in specifically for ADHD. So having that access to clean data is what we built our algorithms upon. Although there were cases where individuals would come in and they would have other comorbidities, but that wasn't seen as often. Whereas now when we're beginning our validation study with CHIO, what we're realizing through conversations with psychiatrists and pediatricians is a lot of these children have other comorbidities. So how does that influence their EEG signaling? And how does that play out when we're confirming a diagnosis? Our focus currently is only ADHD, but we recognize and realize that there are other comorbidities that we might have to tweak or incorporate as a part of our offering. But we are amidst our validation study with CHIO, and once that completes, we will be looking into other mental health conditions. So definitely there is a little bit of nuances which are different, but overall, in terms of brainwave activity, I like to give the example of blood types, right? Like regardless of whether you're living in a third world country or in a high income country, your blood types are going to remain the same. So the blueprints for mental health conditions are pretty much the same. It's a matter of having multiple conditions versus having access to clean data, which is a little bit of a hurdle, but we're working with CHIO right now to develop more robust algorithms.
Okay, that's great to hear. That just might be something you just want to quickly address, just because there is a difference. I also like the way how you just answered this question in terms of the comorbidity component of it. Like I wouldn't recommend that you already jump into other disease types, but already understanding that comorbidity does exist, because in mental health, it isn't just one component of it, right? Like they all intertwine so quickly. So just making sure that the investor knows that you are thinking through this, right? And you are thinking about the problem holistically, because mental health isn't like, it's so intertwined with so many different aspects that it's not just a singular type of diagnostic. And therefore you are thinking through that. Overall, like very similar to Leah, like I am a big fan of storytelling, and I thought you bringing in those two personal stories at the beginning is amazing, because you really you capture the audience and they start to understand it. Where I would I've said this in the previous session, and so Jane heard it, is where I potentially would stick the knife in the liver and twist it a bit more is in terms of the pain, right? Like right now, the mental health system in Canada is dying. I have a personal example of a mother whose child was committed, and when they got released, their first appointment was 6 months later. And can you imagine having a device like this, what that would do for parents and things like that, being able to do that? So I think if you can articulate that, especially on slideware, in terms of the pain, right, coming out of COVID, the challenges, lack of access, in terms of even getting a diagnostic, right? It's really tough. And I think if you can emphasize that more, it creates more around that compelling event. And then you're launching into all the goodness that you've done, whether it's all the trials you've secured, a commitment in terms of doing early trials at Chio. You have a plan in terms of how you want to go to it. And you can explain out your pricing and what that plan looks like a bit better, but create that pain point. And then when people see all of the goodness, they really see the problem that you're trying to solve, as well as this effective solutioning for it.
Perfect. Thank you. No, that's great feedback.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Farhana and Leah. Matthew.
Great presentation. I'll make it quick. I agree with what was said about all the first part of your presentation. Very well done. We really connect to it, and it's good. And I think it's much better than I've seen your presentation in the past. I think you deliver that part very well. I'll focus more on the slide that's right here, pricing strategy. So overall presentation is really good. I'm just going to focus on the business model and the pricing strategy. This is the hardest part, especially when you're talking about SaaS. It's likely you'll get it wrong, but you have to start somewhere. You got to experiment. I would rather see a number instead of TBD, because you're presenting me with an investment opportunity. I want to see what's the potential. And right now you say, well, I don't know what it is, right? You're saying TBD. So you're probably going to get it wrong. You'll be adjusting as you go, but you have to find that number. And that's also a part, I don't know if you've started to kind of feel the market, talking to people, how much you'll be able to charge for that. And one of my questions right now is I look at this, you say, well, compared to alternative, it's 50K, but I'm only charging 500 a month. Like, why is that? Like, why not charge more? So I think that's really important. You put something on there.
Okay.
And it could be a range as well, but you have to start somewhere. And if you don't have that information, go out in the market and try to really figure out what people would be ready to pay for that, and how they would pay it, and who exactly would pay it. Next slide, just after that. No, not that one. Your ask, like the 500K. So it's always good to show where the money is going to go. However, what's even more important when you say the ask is, what is that going to take you? Where is that going to take you? Like, which milestone are you going to hit with that? How much value you're going to create? So as an investor, I'm helping you. Let's say I'm going to invest in this round. I want to see where is it going to, your that 500K, where is it going to take you as far as milestone, maybe company valuation? Is it to a next round? It's like still not really clear. Okay. So what am I getting? What's going to be the upside of that investment? I think that's important, and I'm sure we're running out of time. I'm leave it to that. But overall, I like the delivery and everything, the messaging, especially how you start and talk about the markets, all very well done. So congrats.
Thank you. Can I ask a quick question to the group?
Yeah.
It's in terms of, sorry, I'm gonna pass by. I'm contemplating if this slide is any significant. We had a design specialist yesterday session with Sheboot, and she gave us great recommendation. But in terms of my previous milestones and in this slide, because I follow it with this and this, as investors, do you want to hear about what all I've done, or should I just not have this slide and just start on where we are today, where we're headed?
Oh, because it starts at 2017, you're saying, right? Should it go back that far?
Yeah.
I personally kind of like it, because I like to see how much has gone into what brought you to that point. It gives it some credibility. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I would agree, right? Like in terms of, and this is where potentially you can go through that recommendation of talking about all the thinking you've done, because this shows the thinking you've done and how you've addressed it and how that's changed into how you're moving forward. So you don't need to spend like 9,642 hours on it, but I think it's good context.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay,
I think
great.
the challenge is often people are really aggressive about how fast they can deliver things. And they underestimate how long it takes to validate things in the market and everything else. And so you're showing that, you know what, this has taken years, right, of validation and getting things ready. So to me, that's valuable.
Okay.
I'll have to excuse myself. I have to leave. I'm in the middle of a transaction that's closing today, and I just received an email. I gotta respond. I'll try to hop back in if I can
Okay.
later.
Okay, go do it, Matthew.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.